Ys Memories of Celceta is sort of a funny existence. You see, at one point, Falcom was pretty lenient in licensing out its franchises, so much so that before now, there were two versions of Ys 4, Dawn of Ys and Mask of Sun. Both were released around the same time, and yet neither were developed by Falcom. However, in 2012, Falcom developed and released their own version of Ys 4 for the PlayStation Vita, Ys Memories of Celceta. Now in 2018, XSEED has published the game in the West once more, but this time it's been released for the PC. The story of Memories of Celceta is pretty simple. As always, you play as the hero Adol coming back from a grand adventure in a forbidden forest. But herein lies the problem. The adventure was so grand that when Adol came back from a nearby town, he lost all of his memories. Not just his memories from inside the forest either, but literally everything. When Adol gets back to a nearby town, he's able to meet up with his friend Durin, only to be dragged into helping out a group of miners out of a jam. During this rescue, Adol sees a flash of light which only gives him a piece of his memories back. After the rescue, the mayor of the town thanks Adol and tasks him with going back into the forest and chart it out, as he's one of the very few people to come back from that forest alive. Although you're charting a forest, thankfully there really isn't a charting process. You just have to explore and the game will fill in the gaps by itself. However, you really have to travel every inch, otherwise you'll be stuck off a map that's been 99.9% completed, and you'll be wondering what corner of the entire map you missed. As a reward for your efforts, the game will reward you with gold and items the more you complete the map. Of course, it's not just a huge forest to explore. There are a lot of dungeons here as well. These dungeons in particular have puzzles to solve, and one can certainly see the inspiration from the Legend of Zelda series. This is due to the fact that as you travel through the dungeons, about halfway through, you'll take on a mini-boss and you'll get a new item to explore the rest of the dungeon with. This item may also help in traversing the forest as well. If you're coming off of Ys 8 that released recently, the gameplay will be very familiar. This is the second game with the party system, whereas Ys 8 is the third, so while things aren't as tight, it's still very good. Your party members' attacks come in one of three flavors. Some like Adol have slash attacks, others like Durin have smash attacks, and lastly you have your piercing attacks. Enemies typically are weak to one of these three forms of attacks. You have your normal attacks, break attacks that cost meter, and special moves that cost a different meter, but does an incredible amount of damage. Filling these meters are fairly easy. Breaking field materials and normal attacks fill the break attack meter, whereas with special attacks, you use break attacks. Outside of attacking, your defensive options are dashing and guarding. Dash at the right moment and time will slow down, allowing you to dish out your attacks. Guarding at the right moment allows all of your attacks to be critical hits. Regardless of either you do, you won't take any damage for a brief period of time. Depending on how your party is set up, there are also small bonuses to obtain. For instance, if you had one of each type of attacker on your team, there is a chance enemies will drop rarer items, whereas if you had two of the same type on your team, your damage output will increase. If you remember the game on the PS Vita, it ran okay, and it looked okay. On PC, as expected, it depends on what parts you have, but for reference, this game was being played on an 8700K and a GTX 1070 with 16GB of RAM. The result is the ability to play the game at 4K 60 frames per second. While not completely locked or maxed even, it does stick to 60 FPS most of the time. The caveat in all of this is that the HDR implementation can absolutely destroy your frame rate, depending on how heavy you want it to be implemented. The overall port job is great. It's really well optimized and supports 120 frames per second and an unlimited frame rate. It also has a ton of resolution options and even more graphics options to boot. Regardless, there are a ton of options, so you can optimize your experience in a ton of ways. Granted, in the end, the game was originally on the PS Vita, and there's only so much you can really do in terms of looks. Ys Memories of Celceta is honestly fantastic, with a great port job to match. The only real negative here is that the story in the game isn't all that great. Ultimately, that's fine since Ys has always been about the gameplay anyway, but now with the power of unlimited frame rate, it plays better than ever. And that does it for our review. To see the written review, be sure to check out our website gaminggamma.com. A link to the site will be down in the description bar below. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. And if this is your first time checking out my channel via this review, hey, be sure to stick around and subscribe for future reviews, let's plays, commentaries, and more. And as always everyone, thanks for watching.